Hi, I'm Stuart. Thanks for taking a look at my video. In this video I'm going to give my reading wrap up for the week of June 9th through June 15th. I completed 3 books this week and I'm going to give reviews of all 3 books. I read part of another book, so I'm going to talk briefly about that. And I got 2 new books, so I'm going to talk briefly about them. I'm also going to talk a little bit of other stuff in my life toward the end, after I start talking about the books. I'm going to talk about the books in reverse order of how I rated them. The first book I rated 4 stars. That book is Call Me Barbra by Barbra Streisand. Before I talk about the book, I'm going to give a short author bio, which was from the Libby in the back of the book. I had borrowed the book from Libby. Barbra Streisand is by any account a living legend. A woman who is in a career spanning 6 decades has excelled in every area of entertainment. She is amongst a handful of EGOT winners, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony, and has been one of the greatest and most recognizable voices in the history of popular music. She has been nominated for a Grammy 46 times. With Yentl, she became the first woman to write, produce, direct, and star in a major motion picture. There's a lot more in this bio. But one other thing it said, which I wanted to mention, is that it said that the ebook edition features additional photographs that are exclusive to the ebook. Just mention that if someone was actually considering purchasing or borrowing the book, that might be a reason to select the ebook. I first borrowed this book from Libby back early December, and I read pretty steadily for 21 days until I had to return it. I read 72% of the book, and Libby indicated that I had taken 24 hours reading it, which is a lot for me in a 3-week period for one book. But I ran out of time and had to return it. And it had taken me a while to get the book after I put it in a hold. And then when I went back into the pool, it wasn't until early in June that I got it back again. So it's a quite popular book. The book talks about Barbra Streisand's life from early on, her youth, her teen years, her early forays into entertainment, her successes and failures, through to nearly the present time. She never knew her father. He died before she was old enough to be aware of him. Her mother was somewhat cold to her. She was not particularly loving. She rarely praised Barbra. Her mother wanted to have a career in entertainment herself, but she never pursued it. And she was jealous of Barbra's successes. Barbra talks about her family relationships, her friend relationships, her business relationships. She goes into great detail in this book. She's interacted with a lot of people, so there's a lot of names she talks about. And it was difficult for me to follow them, because what would often happen is after she introduced a person, she first talked about them, then she'd give their first name. So it was kind of hard to keep track of them. She also goes into great detail about clothes, the clothes she wore personally, costumes that were used in her movies, costumes that were designed for her and she wore at award shows. She goes into great details on those. She also goes into great detail on the sets for the movies she played in, the sets for the concert she did, furniture in her houses. I think this book is really ideal for the hardcore fans of Barbra Streisand, those who have seen her movies repeatedly and know them back and forward, those who are really familiar with her songs, those who are familiar with the stage shows she did. Even if they didn't see them themselves, they may have seen a later version of them. For that person, this book is ideal. She talks in great detail about the music she made, the selection of songs, changes that were made to the songs, the recording process. Talks in great detail about the process of trying to get movies made. She ran into a lot of difficulty because she was trying to get movies made as a woman at a time when only men did it, and she was stonewalled in a lot of cases. I think this book is ideal for the hardcore fan that I mentioned. I'm not particularly a fan. I respect her accomplishments greatly. I just like autobiographies, memoirs, biographies. But I can really only recommend this book for the hardcore fans. Unless you're a person like me who really likes a very detailed, very long, and the book is around 1,000 pages, very long biography, autobiography. I'm not sure this book would be for you. I did enjoy the book, but as I said, this is really for the hardcore Barbra Streisand fans, and the popularity of the book shows that there is a considerable amount of them out there. Next, I'm going to read a short passage from the book so you can get an idea of the writing style. Once again, it was Elliot who found a place for us to live. This time while I'd be filming Funny Girl. The English country-style house came with a Hollywood pedigree. Barbra and Marlene Dietrich had both lived there, so that sounds good to me. We had barely unpacked when Ray Stark called and said he was giving a big party to welcome me. He invited a few hundred people, and apparently they all said yes, because he reeled off the names of every movie star you could think of. John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, Gregory Peck, Gary Cooper, Cary Grant, Merle Oberon, Jennifer Jones, Rosalind Russell. I don't like big parties. They're not fun for me. I get shy. And I worried that all the amazing stars were going to be looking at me and thinking, what's so special about her? The whole idea made me sick to my stomach. When it came time to get dressed, I was so nervous I actually threw up. I must have changed my clothes 6 times. Is this outfit good enough for Hollywood? What about my hair? Next book I want to talk about is a book I rated 4.5 stars. It's A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. This is a book I decided to read after watching a couple of videos by Pat at Book Chat with Pat 8668, and I'm really glad I did. Before I talk about the book, give my review of it, I'm going to give a short author bio, which is from the back of the book. T. Kingfisher writes fantasy, horror, and occasional oddities, including Nettle and Bone and What Moves the Dead. Under a pen name, she also writes best-selling children's books. She lives in North Carolina with her husband, dogs, and a garden with several rose bushes that she keeps a very careful eye on. This book called Sam, short for Samantha. She's a 32-year-old arachno-entomologist, which is a scientist who goes through, digs, and searches through the dirt and searches through refuse piles. Discover remains of insects and then studies the remains. She was on a dig, but human remains were found, so then there were legalities that had to be taken care of, and she's not sure when she can get back to the dig. She doesn't have much of a source of income besides that dig at this time, just a small one, so she decided to go live with her mother. Her mother owns a house that was originally owned by Sam's grandmother. Her mother inherited after grandmother died. Sam and her mother spent a lot of Sam's and her brother's years where they were growing up, living with their grandmother at her grandmother's house. They don't have particularly fond memories of their grandmother. She wasn't particularly nice to the children. She's very strict. When Sam arrives at the house, there's a vulture sitting on a mailbox outside of the house, which, as she jokes, is kind of a portent. When Sam goes into the house, she discovers some changes that concern her. Her mother had the walls painted. There was a painting that was up that upset her. Her mother had lost a lot of weight, and her mother was kind of jittery. There are some beautiful rose bushes of various types in the backyard. Sam, though, discovers something alarming when she looks at them, which maybe many people wouldn't notice, but there was barely any bugs on them, and there should be a lot of bugs, and that concerns her. The book kind of goes from there. It does a great job of gradually revealing things. As a scientist, Sam is resistant to believe things that are occurring, and you kind of want to tell her she should believe it, but it makes sense because she's a scientist. The latter part of the book was very tense and thrilling, and I thought it was a great conclusion to the book. I found Sam a very appealing heroine. She was very realistic. She was funny. So there was funny parts of the book. And I thought it was a good horror novel. And I'm definitely going to read more books by T. Kingfisher. It's fairly short, maybe about 250, 260 pages. And I would recommend this. It's a good short horror novel. Oh, and also I should mention too, it does talk about family drama, because the drama between Sam's grandmother and her mother, and Sam and her brother and her grandmother, there was a lot of drama there. What would be called a dysfunctional family, although I'm not sure I hear people using that term anymore. I recommend A House with Good Bones to anyone who wants to read a horror novel starring a very appealing heroine that builds the tension, a thrilling finish, and also an appealing realistic heroine. And it's not that long, so it's kind of a good entry point for horror, which is one of the reasons Pat has read T. Kingfisher. But despite that, I did find it very tense and thrilling. So it's even if you're an experienced horror reader, I would recommend this book. I quite enjoyed it. Now I'm going to give a short passage from the book so you can get an idea of the writing style. This is actually the passage that starts the book. There was a vulture on the mailbox of my grandmother's house. As omens go, it doesn't get much more obvious than that. This was a black vulture, not a turkey vulture, but that's about as much as I could tell you. I have a biology degree, but it's in bugs, not birds. The only reason that I knew that much was because the identification key for vultures in North America is extremely straightforward. Does it have a black head? It's a black vulture. Does it have a red head? It's a turkey vulture. This works unless you're in the Southwest, where you have to add, is it the size of a small fighter jet? It's a California condor. We have very few small condors in North Carolina. I bet you have some amazing feather mites, I told the vulture, opening the car door. The vulture tilted his head and considered this, or me, or my aging Subaru. I took out my phone and got several glamour shots of the bird. When I tried to upload one to the internet, however, my phone informed me that it had 1/10 of a bar, and my GPS conked out completely. And I had one 5-star book that I read, and that book is The Diary of a Confused Feminist by Kate Weston. This was a book that I was a couple months ago at the library. I went to the library to make a donation. I forget whether it was books or CDs, whatever, but some kind of donation. And while there, I decided to take a look inside. And I was just looking around, and I borrowed 3 books, and this book was one of them. It was just on the YA section at the end, and it just looked appealing, so I borrowed it. And they automatically renewed it a couple times, the borrow, but after the 3rd time, there's no more renewal, so I had to read it, and I'm glad I did. Before I give my review of the book, I want to give a brief author bio, which is from the author's website. Kate Weston is the next stand-up comedian and the author of YA books Murder on a School Night, Diary of a Confused Feminist, and Must Be There. Her debut adult novel, You May Kill the Bride, is publishing in May 2024. Actually, she should update her website because I did check, and that novel has in fact been published already. This book stars Kat. She's 15 years old. She's going to school in England. I believe she's in 11th grade. She wants to be a good feminist, but she struggles with that. She doesn't think she's good enough. Actually, in many things, she doesn't think she's good enough. She is badly bullied at school. She is having some struggles with her friends. Her self-esteem isn't great. This is a what I would say is a true YA novel. I've seen some booktubers talk about the fact that they don't believe that YA novels these days are actually aimed for a YA audience, they're aimed for an older audience. And I will say that I think this book is a true YA novel. It's really aimed for 14, 15, 16-year-olds, which of course I'm not. But I felt it realistically talked about the things, the struggles teens go through. And I really cared about Kat. I was really concerned about what was happening with her. I think perhaps part of it is because I was bullied badly myself in 7th and 8th grade. There's some other issues Kat goes through which, although they didn't occur for me when I was in school, they occurred later, that I can also sympathize and understand. So I think for those reasons, I don't want to say what those are because that would be a spoiler. I think for those reasons I really identified with her and cared about what happened to her. It's been quite a while since I cared about a character as much as I cared about Kat. I really was invested in her character, and I really wanted things to be okay for her. I found Kat and her friends and her family were all appealing characters. I recommend this book for anyone who wants to read a true YA novel with an appealing heroine. And I'm definitely going to read more from this author. There's one other book I read part of this week, which is The Mind of a Bee by Lars Chittka. Not too far in it. I'm enjoying it, but sometimes I feel that it goes a little deep on the science. So I'm struggling a bit with that, but I am enjoying it. And there's 2 new books I got this week. And the first book is one that I learned about from a comment from Weston at Triumphal Reads that he made in my last video when I talked about struggling with my AAPI Heritage Month reading. He suggested a book called Sea People, The Puzzle of Polynesia by Christina Thompson. That's a great suggestion because when I thought of reading books by Asian American or Asian authors in general, I've never thought beyond fiction books, but it's a good suggestion to read a nonfiction book. So I checked. It was on Hoopla, so I borrowed it. And I haven't started yet, but I'm looking forward to it. And it was, as I said, it was a good suggestion by Justin because this may open the door for me to look at more nonfiction books from Asian authors. So I'm looking forward to reading this book. Another book that I got, I had to buy it as a Nook book because it's not offered from Hoopla or Libby, is The Middle Ages, A Graphic History by Eleanor Janega. This is my second quarter read for Historathon 2024. I have a suspicion that most people probably reading Historathon books would maybe blanch at a book like this, but as a kind of entry-level person in it, it seemed like a good place to start. Next, I just want to talk briefly about the latest Wobble I'm doing. It's Henri the Frog. This is the package. This is what Henri's supposed to look like when I'm done. I am mostly done. Here's like the main body, and here's like the two eyes, which go on the top of the head. I have to attach them. And then there's a mouth that has to be inserted here, and then I'll be done. It's possible I'll be done today. If so, I'll insert a photo of the completed one. But that's what I've been working on this week as far as Wobbles go. Other than that, I got a haircut, colored. That was this past Thursday. I watched some WNBA games on TV. I watch a lot of Booktuber videos and other YouTube videos too. I have other routine things I do, which I probably won't talk about here, but I might some other time. But that's basically what I've been doing this week, besides the reading. I'd be interested to know how your reading week went. If you have any books that you really enjoyed you'd like to recommend. if you had any books that you didn't like and you maybe like to warn me against. If you're interested in providing that information, please add a comment. I know I'm interested in reading. I always like to learn what other people are reading, what they think about the books that they read. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Please subscribe. Please hit the bell to get notified when I upload future videos. I'm trying to upload videos on Sunday, which are my weekly wrap-ups, and on Wednesday, which is more varied. In a lot of cases, it might be tag videos. Hope you have a wonderful day.